Welcome back to the Collective Evolution podcast here. Today we're going to be talking about an interesting subject that may be controversial to some people because it explores a way of knowing or a way of understanding something that isn't necessarily culturally that prominent in the Western world. And this is, of course, talking about intuition, explicit intuition specifically, which is that information can come from outside of us within ourselves, picked up by our brain or picked up by some aspect of our listening devices within ourselves as people, and made sense of and conveyed through the voice. Now, this is typically what channeling is known as. And I know that this is controversial because, especially if you haven't been diving into the research behind this subject, or especially if you look at some of the hoaxer cases that are out there, it's easy to say, well, those were hoaxes, so every single one of these cases is a hoax. But if you've had direct experience with this, whether it be, being with somebody who's a very talented medium, whether you've had experiences yourself where you've intuited something explicitly and you don't have any reason to know where it might have come from, but it is very, very real experience. It's something that you directly have experienced, like myself, many times over. You know that there's something to this, and there's something that pulls your interest, it pulls your curiosity further into what does it mean to be human? What really are we as material beings, or are we something beyond material beings, something that can tap into this field around us that contains intelligence, that contains information? And when you've had that experience, it's very hard to walk away and just be fully skeptical. But I totally understand that you could be skeptical on the other side. And in that sense, I encourage you to check out some of the research that I did place below in the description so that you can kind of dive into some of the ways that this research has been legitimized. Again, I think we're running into, in this particular subject, a challenge whereby we see this all over the place. When something comes against our worldview, we often look at what are the ways in which we can easily just debunk this or easily push this away. And what ends up happening is the lowest common denominator type situation or information out there. So somebody who might be legitimately scamming somebody when it comes to things like channeling or intuition becomes the finger, where the finger points to say, well, yeah, this whole thing is just bogus. But yet all the actual cases, all the real cases, all the times where we have no explanation other than to open our worldview, open our consciousness to something else that's possible that maybe we don't fully understand yet, those cases just get kind of brushed under the rug because we have an explanation here for the lowest common denominator. So I encourage you to check within yourself as you listen to this, as we do with all of our work here at CE and the Pulse, is to really just listen, like, where are you resonating, right? Are you coming up in ways where there is some challenge here, where you feel uncomfortable listening to these sorts of things, and explore, is it coming up against a belief I have? Or do I believe that this information that is being shared may not be true? And see what that feels like for yourself in the discernment process. So we're going to be interviewing here, myself and Madhava, a man by the name of Sam The Illusionist. Now, he's going to kind of talk about his particular story, but Sam has a YouTube channel where he channels different I guess you can call different beings, and shares information.
And just for a quick reference, here's what Sam sounds like when he is channeling.
And we are now communicating at this time through this instrument's inner connection to our social memory complex. Further, our transmission is aimed at providing insights.
Again, you be the judge here. We ask a number of tough questions to Sam as we explore this discussion. Again, here we're just exploring ways of knowing. We're trying to bring in some interesting ways of thinking about what it means to be human and how we can actually explore different ways of knowing things that are really, really difficult to prove or really, really difficult to know given the nature of our world and where we are culturally. Anywho, one more quick word here from Madhava, and then we'll get started.
Yes, thanks, Joe. Thanks for having me on. Welcome everybody to this episode. The person that we're going to bring on, as Joe said, is a guy that goes by the name Sam The Illusionist. Now, the reason why this conversation and this person is so important, in my opinion, is, as we probably know, there's a lot of disclosure that's happening in our world today around the extraterrestrial phenomenon. And, some people are just regarding this as a quote-unquote psyop, that, if the government is talking about ETs, then ETs must be some sort of fabrication that's being used for another purpose. But quite honestly, if you really dive into the ET phenomenon, it goes back decades. And there's a lot of confusion around this. And we have to also consider the fact that what we're hearing from our sources of news and our government is probably not going to be the full picture. And I have looked into this quite deeply, as I'm sure you have too, Joe. And I've been on, expeditions out there with Stephen Greer doing CE5 protocol, and I've read books and talked to many people. And what's really interesting to me is that I've come to the conclusion that if ET contact is being made, it's not necessarily going to be with the appearance of ships in the sky. And even if that was true, even if that was occurring, we also have to contend with the fact that, how do we know that those aren't our own ships? That, it's secret technology that the military has been working on for decades. And we have to be very clear here. We give them a lot of money. And all we have to show for it are big boats and interesting shaped planes and smart bombs. And, for the amount of money that we've been handing over to our military-industrial complex, that is not enough to show for it. And I'm pretty confident that some of that money is being diverted to secret technologies that would appear as something advanced, alien, to a public that's never been exposed to it. So what I am proposing here, and I think this is my conclusion, I'm not saying that you should believe me at all. I believe that the most interesting and authentic contact may actually be telepathic. And if you deeply look at the history of what may be considered telepathic communication with extraterrestrials, it's very large. And I stumbled across a body of channeled information, presumably or purportedly from an alien source, and it's called the Law of One. And it is deeply profound. It is no less than a postdoctoral dissertation in metaphysics. And it was a body of information that was channeled over 4 years, and about 40 years ago. And it's called the Law of One. And here we have, all the books of the transcription of this particular contact with this entity. And having read many philosophical scriptures, I find this to be quite astounding. And what I'd like to offer here is just kind of an excerpt of the kind of information that was being transmitted to a trio of people in the early 1980s, where a woman named Carla Rueckert acted as the telepathic channel who was in trance state when all of this information was transmitted. So what I want you to do, this is from the very first transmission to Carla Rueckert in 1981. And the entity that's speaking through her calls itself Ra. And Ra, if you really want to look deeply into it, claims to be a collective consciousness of a civilization that no longer takes physical form. They claim that they're 2.6 billion years ahead of us and that they've been in contact with humanity for tens of thousands of years. And what's interesting about this body of knowledge is that it was a two-way communication. Questions were asked of this entity by a very smart person named Don Elkins, who was a pilot and an engineer and a professor. And the questions he asks are very, very deep and complicated. And the responses come so quickly and so elegantly. So just to give your audience a taste of what Ra sounds like and the way Ra uses language, I'm going to read this to you here, okay? This is Ra speaking. I am Ra. Consider, if you will, that the universe is infinite. This has yet to be proven or disproven, but we can assure you that there is no end to yourselves, your understanding, what you would call your journey of seeking, or your perceptions of the creation. That which is infinite cannot be many, for manyness is a finite concept. To have infinity, you must identify or define the infinity as unity. Otherwise, the term does not have any referent or meaning. like, consider what that means. Like, I'm not saying that this is true or not, but notice the elegance of how a very profound concept was being transmitted to the trio. And I'm just going to finish with one more excerpt here for your consideration. And Don, the engineer who's asking the questions, asks Ra about the utility or futility of trying to guide people in their path to know themselves better. It's a very interesting question. Like, is it worthwhile to teach someone? Are we going to screw them up by giving them information? You know, how do you consider this? It's a very profound question, I think, which is why I find this material so interesting. And Ra says, I am Ra. And I want to say something here. Every time Ra speaks, Ra always starts with I am Ra in order to identify itself as the entity that's speaking through the channel, so that there's no misconception of who is speaking. So this is the answer to the question. Group individuated consciousness is that state of sharing understanding with the other distortions of mind-body-spirit complexes, which are within the evident reach of the mind-body-spirit complex, individual or group. Thus, we are speaking to you and accepting both our distortions and your own in order to enunciate the laws of creation, more especially the law of one. We are not available to many of your peoples, for this is not an easily understood way of communication or type of philosophy. However, our very being is hopefully a poignant example of both the necessity and the near hopelessness of attempting to teach. Now, I'm not going to unpack that for you, right? It's something that you have to deeply consider before rejecting it or accepting it. I'm not at all saying that you must listen to what Ra is saying, but in my mind, in my own intuition, this is my biases that are in play. I find that to be unbelievably profound. I mean, basically, Ra is saying it is almost impossible to guide someone in an efficient way towards their own realization. You know, it takes courage, and it takes a lot of, I would say, insight of the recipient of the information, but it is a worthwhile pursuit. And I mean, this is the kind of information that I think is really profound. But moreover, it is the use of language, the syntax. To me, at least, it feels like it's a vast intelligence that's struggling with a very limited language. And the reason why I'm saying all of this is when you listen to Sam channel, and he claims to be channeling Ra again, as well as other entities, it is the same kind of use of language and terminology, 40 years later. And that's what strikes me as the reason why we should consider what Sam has been channeling. Could it be the same source? And if so, what is it saying now? And that's why I think in this situation we're in right now, with all of this confusion, all of this disclosure, all of the spinning that's going on, all of the reactions to it, perhaps there's something beyond all of that, something that is penetrating humanity unfiltered. And that's why I think this conversation is going to be important.
Cool. Well, that sounds good. I know I'm sure we'll get into a lot of interesting pieces once we bring Sam on, perhaps even our individual experiences with some of this stuff, and just kind of unpacking some of I think even the discernment aspect of this, which I know is going to be probably one of the big things on a lot of people's mind. So yeah, why don't we just dive right in? All right, Sam, welcome to the show. It's good to have you on. How you doing?
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. Both of you, thank you for inviting me to the show. And I also want to say thank you to all the listeners for listening to the podcast or the show today.
Beauty. So I think a great place to start is, why don't you tell us in your own words, like, what is it that you do? Like, channeling, how would you describe it? What exactly are you doing?
Yeah, when I'm channeling, it feels like, connecting with an outside source, not from my own mind or my body, but, it feels like, as if I'm connecting with a source which is outside of me, and connecting with beings. And it feels like I'm not here on my body, but it feels like I'm over there with them when I'm channeling. And much like, when you have a dream, you can see yourself, in the dream. It feels so real, like you're actually over there. And sometimes, while you're in your dream state, you may be also, experiencing, astral realities or other interdimensional realities and stuff like that. So basically, channeling, feels like connecting with a source, which is, beyond the mind and the body. And primarily, what I like to see is that, channeling can be confused. Many people, they confuse with their inner voice. Everyone has this inner voice, but sometimes, people get confused. They ask me questions like, am I channeling? Well, the answer is, actually, it's, when I am channeling, what happens is that there is a silence or a, or a void, of nothingness, which then leads me to connect with these beings. So that is the difference, which I can tell you. When you're channeling, there needs to be some kind of, gateway. They say that, silence is the gateway to intelligent infinity in many of the sessions. So that connects with us, with the portal, I believe, which allows us to connect with higher beings. So yeah, that's what it is.
Nice. And I mean, lots of profound things to say that, or, to break off from there. I mean, Madhava, did you want to add anything before we move on to the next question, or?
Yeah, I would like to ask a follow-up question. And Sam, this is a question that you have answered many times. I've watched a lot of your interviews, but I think it'd be useful, once again, if you would tell us this remarkable story of how you started channeling and the circumstances around that. And I know you've said this many times, but it's a really intriguing story for all of the listeners that we have today.
Yeah, actually, it began. First of all, let me tell you, I live in India. Channeling, no one knows about channeling. Okay, first of all, let me clear that up. And I had no idea that channeling even existed. I had never even heard the word channeling. Before I started to, this happened out of nowhere. So basically, what happened was that I was actually studying about hypnosis, and I was also a street magician. I used to do magic, and I was trying to hypnotize other people. I was able to even make people forget their name, forget their number, or do other things that you may see on a stage hypnosis. So then what happened was that I was listening to a hypnotic tape while I was just lying in my bed. And somehow I don't remember what actually was said in the session, because I don't have the recording. My mother heard me speak in a very different kind of way, which if you watch my channeling sessions, you realize that it's not me. It is totally different, and the voice actually sounds a bit not like me, but a little bit different. So that was the point. My mother told me that I was maybe sick or maybe suffering. And because in India, we have belief systems about possessions and stuff like that. So I was taken to the hospital, and the doctor, even here, they don't have idea about channeling, because it's pretty, primitive society in a way, not like America, where people are channeling and they know about this stuff. But here, people have no idea. And I was given, I was prescribed that I was sick, with psychosis. It's called a disease of the mind. But unfortunately, the thing is, I did not, believe what the doctor said, because it only happened while I was in that state of trance, and other time, I was fine. So I had a doubt in my mind, because taking medication for mental illness when you don't have it, may lead to some consequences. So I was, I tried to do some research on the internet, and I tried to find out what was happening. And then I stumbled, about this channeling concept. I found out that there were many people in the world with whom this had actually happened. And with me, I think, it was sheer accident, or maybe it was my soul contract. As in many of the sessions, they have said that I also had a soul swap. So basically, a soul swap is my previous soul, just left this body, and another soul came in to fulfill its mission. And I believe that is very true as per my own experience, because my personality and my, my behaviors, everything has changed. Even my mother has noticed that. So basically, that's how it happened.
If I may, Joe, I want to ask one more thing about this. In one of your sessions, you have let us know who this new person you soul swap with is a very interesting soul. Isn't that right, Sam?
Yeah, they said that there was a famous, I believe, Seth. They said that it's from Jane Roberts. There was a channeler, I believe, in America. So I believe the same soul fragment has come in to fulfill the mission, and I believe we may be related in that manner, and yeah, that's what I know.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, very cool. So this sort of just happened. You start diving into this stuff, and I guess one question is what was the discernment process like of kind of, what exactly am I channeling? How do I know if what I'm channeling is accurate, or if it's coming from different beings at different times? Can you explain what that discernment process was like?
Yeah, I'll tell you, what actually happened, after first time, I went to the doctor. Then the second time, I told, my mother I had a GoPro. I just to just press the button, if that happens again. So I was in the trance state, and I realized that they usually answer, questions in our mind. So questions I had in my mind, like most people, what they do is if they have a problem in their life, they constantly think about how to solve the problem. It's an unconscious process. And I was doing the same thing without realizing. And when I entered the trance state, they actually answered what I was supposed to do. And then I did that thing, and then it worked. So I, from that fact alone, I know that this is coming from, some higher being, some higher power who is here. And I saw, I've even experienced it in my own life, the power, you know what I mean? Like, it's like an effect, what can I say is that you cannot see gravity, but if you throw an apple, it will fall down. You can see the effect, right? But you cannot see the gravitons or whatever is working. So that there is something. So in the same manner, I from that, I realized that this is not coming from me, but from some higher power. Something big is going here.
Yeah.
Madhava, looks like you want to say something there. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I find this whole conversation so unbelievably interesting, and I hope people are sort of tuning into the profundity of what's going on right now. So, Sam, I would like to say that we discovered you 2 years ago, only a few months after you started channeling and putting your videos online. And the reason why I stopped in my tracks and listened with absolute attention is, for years before, I had been studying a book of channeled knowledge called The Law of One, the raw material. There are many books. I know you have some familiarity with it now, but what I was suggesting is that the reason why I find the entities that you are channeling to be authentic is that you speak exactly like they did 41 years ago. You're using the same vocabulary, the same syntax, and clearly it's in a way of speaking that is not native to you or normal to you. And that for me was a very big point as to why I should take what you're channeling very seriously. So my first question would be, how familiar are you with the raw material or the Law of One?
Actually, I haven't, even had the time to read the Law of One, but I, get many comments, stating that they speak in a similar manner. And, I don't know, like maybe this is their common language, like that's how they communicate. And also I have had one person, recently state that there was one person known as Edgar Casey, he had also, I believe, channeled or something like that. And the entity, in that book known as The Children of the Law of One, it was written, I believe, even before the Law of One. The syntax is same. So I don't know what is happening here. Maybe, these beings, that's how they communicate properly. Or maybe that's how they like to use the language. So I have had, two instances, of people stating this, and one is from the Edgar Casey, like the Children of the Law of One booklet. The syntax is similar, they said, and also right now the law of one. Unfortunately, I haven't read any of them, because I don't have the time, right now to fully go in, because they are, I believe, pretty, in-depth material, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So, this is great. What I'd like to ask you next is, have you received messages? And first of all, as for the audience, like Sam channels more than just raw, many entities. And have you noticed at any time a contradiction from these different sources?
Yeah, right now, I actually I haven't yet. Maybe, because I haven't analyzed it yet, because I don't pretty much remember anything that's said in the session. It just comes through, and then I have to watch it, and I don't remember like much of what was said. So maybe like there may be some contradictions, because they have said that like there are infinite parallel realities, and sometimes they may give information which may be from another timeline or stuff like that, and it may contradict. But I have yet to find one my own self. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Joe, it's your turn.
You were on a roll there with your questions, but yeah. So I guess my question, I've been looking at channeling for over the years, a lot of different pieces to the puzzle that kind of all come together in the sense of like, we're going through some sort of shift. We're going through some sort of change here on the planet is something that is often talked about. To be totally honest, I mean, that the whole creation of the brand Collective Evolution was, sort of tapping into this deep felt sense that I had back in 2009. That was like something I'm sort of answering a call. I don't know how to describe it other than that. I'm not saying it was like a huge religious experience, but it was this following of this subtle energy that said something's changing in the way humans are seeing their world and seeing themselves. And let's create a space to talk about this. Does that message, or do you hear that often in a lot of what you channel?
Yeah, pretty much, all the time, I hear about the changes happening. And basically, like what I've learned from my session is that, like people right now, they are mostly, most of them, they are unawake. They are following the patterns which the system or the society has created, and there are some people like us, we are slowly because of our experience, like something happens out of accident, or we get into some trouble, and then we find out how to get out of that. So during that process, they discover that they are much greater than their mind or their body. They are the soul, and as a spiritual being, like we all have to go through changes. And right now, even we can see that like society has changed a lot, just because of like you can even say that recently there was a UFO hearing, which is very unusual. People used to make fun of UFOs, and I never expected that it would happen. But see, there is a change happening, and right now, like people, I believe, are more aware that there is something like interdimensional beings. There are aliens, there are other life forms, and then as they begin to research, they begin to find out that they are also a spiritual being, and that they are living in a kind of a matrix, which is designed for us to learn lessons from. And then as we learn the lessons, we will begin to enter the new earth, or the fourth density. That's what they say in many of the sessions. And the changes are happening every day. Like whenever you make a positive choice, whenever you help someone, you instead of choosing a lower vibration emotion, you choose a higher vibration emotion, like love, joy, happiness. You are actually changing yourself, and your actions will also be different. Because I don't know if the viewers of this show have noticed that or not, because all the actions they take is based on their state of consciousness or the emotional state. And when they change that, their actions will change, and their behaviors will change. Everything will begin to change, and it's actually we are actually entering into a higher level every time. But there is also a chance that people may choose to enter into lower vibration. That is also possible, because fourth density is not only a positive but also negative fourth density, and we are here to make a choice. So some people may choose to be self-service only, and they will more than likely, if they go that pathway, graduate into the negative self-service kind of fourth density. And those who are in the positive pathway, who choose the vibration love, service to others, they will enter into a positive polarity.
Yeah, that's a great synopsis. So first of all, for our viewers here today, again, we're going to recommend, talk about Sam's channel, but the reason why I thought it was very, very beautiful is that Sam has always presented the material and his own persona in a state of love and connection, as opposed to, angrily stating what's going on and you must listen to me because of everything that I'm channeling. It's more about peace and getting in touch with your own intuition and discernment and heart. So much of what you've channeled, Sam, talks about the so-called elites and what we would say outside of your sphere as a global construction of different systems that are meant to enslave and suppress humanity. And my question to you is, were you aware of these things prior to channeling, like all of the dynamics of the planet and the history of this kind of suppression?
No, I had no idea. Before this, like I said, I was, normal person. I had no, some of the things, they sound really, really out there. And, sometimes, the proof, it's coming out slowly that it's actually happening. And I had no idea, I used to think that, everything, that, is around us is, good. No one is trying to control us, but unfortunately, the truth, as we go in deep, we find out that there are many, people, especially, people, who are wealthy, like Elon Musk, Bill Gates, all these people, they try, and Mark Zuckerberg as well, they try to, and not just those people, but there are also others who, specifically, they, try to control humanity in some way, for their own gain. And I believe, in many of the sessions, they stated that, these elites, they have already signed many soul contracts with negative entities, and they want to control humanity and try to push the fear agenda in order to, stop the new earth from arriving. So that is their basic plans, as far as I have received.
Mm-hmm. So in every single session, the entity that speaks through Sam always calls for a call to one's own discernment before deciding whether or not to accept what is going to be offered. And I think that's a very important part if you want to consider, are these entities authentically trying to teach us something, or are they trying to control us themselves, which is a question we all must ask. Now, I know you're not familiar with the depth of these books, like The Law of One and Channeled Material, but I want to say this, and throughout all of these other previous channelings, the entity, let's say Ra, was always very reluctant to offer too many details about what's really going on the planet, and would try to stay away from, specifics and answer questions more that has to do with one's own spiritual development. But many of your sessions talk about very specific things about what's going on. Like you pointed out, naming names like Musk and Zuckerberg and Bill Gates and the WEF, the World Economic Forum, was one of your first channeling sessions. And my question to you is, do you think it's serving us to hear all of these specifics, as opposed to engaging with the mystery of life as our teacher, and as opposed to being told exactly what's going on? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, actually, about that, I have no idea, because I just channel, and whatever information they give me, and I just release it. Maybe right now, it is time for us to know about that information. Maybe before, like some of the sessions, channel sessions done by some other people, before me. Maybe it was not the right time, but right now, maybe it's the time for us, and maybe it's the critical time, so that they are giving us what to do and what not to do in a more clear manner. So I think that could be happening, because maybe what's actually happened was that they tried to hint at it, and we couldn't we couldn't learn from that. So maybe that's what they're trying to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. I would tend to agree with you. I think there's so much misinformation coming that we need more specifics than just generalities. What do you think, Joe?
I'm curious because I've been looking at different channel sessions and stuff like that for about 15 years. I've also done some interesting research on channeling from a scientific point of view, to understand that there is legitimacy to some of it, and some of it is obviously not. But and I've also had my own experiences where I feel as though I can discern very clearly I was in touch with something other than myself and my own thoughts, right? And so it's always been a very intriguing subject to me. But like when I look online, for example, there's a couple of prominent channelers out there, and I'm not speaking about you in this particular case, but there's a couple of them out there who, at the beginning of COVID, the pandemic, were like, they had this entire channeled message of like what was going on, what was happening. And so many channelers were saying the same thing. And to be honest, their channeling was completely wrong. None of what they said, happened. This idea of, that there was going to be all these 10 days of darkness, and that this was going to be a taking down of the elite, and all these different things would happen. And my question sort of is like, what you as a channeler that has been doing this for a long time, when you see something like that, what do you make of it? How do you discern it? Or do you have an explanation as to why it was incorrect?
Yeah, I think I exactly know what may have happened over there, because when even the beings, when they are giving us something that may happen in the future, what they're saying is that there is a probable chance that this will happen. Okay, so it's just a probability, like in mathematics. It's probable means that it's very high likelihood it will happen. But if the choices made are different, then some other timeline will happen. But I believe that's what happened there. And many of the times it does seem like that, because I feel that when they are channeling, they are giving us they may be sharing something from one timeline, but we may at any moment make a different choice, and we may enter into a different timeline. Because like I said, like everyone, if all of us, we change our thoughts, we change our emotions, and then we'll change our actions, and that will lead to a completely different timeline. So I believe that's what is happening over here.
Mm-hmm. So in that sense, like, if the timeline can change so quickly in that regard, which I understand, and I can resonate with that to some extent, I guess the question would be then what should people who are listening to the channeling, what is the value of the channel to them if it could change so quickly?
Yeah, I think it depends on the channeled message, whether if the channeled message is of a positive nature, then the people listening may tune into that vibration, and all of us may collectively enter that timeline. Or if it is of a negative nature, then it may be that they are sharing the message so that we may change our vibration by hearing it, and then we will not enter into that timeline. Sometimes even by making people aware of certain things, like for example, just by making us aware that this may be a negative activity to do, most of us will not do it because we have heard it somewhere. So that will change the timeline, and we will not enter into that timeline, right? So I believe that's what is happening here, more like a system of like it's basically, and I feel that we all of us like we form a part of this human collective, but we are all of us the one infinite creator, we have this enormous power, and we can change, timelines if we are able to tap into the, infinite intelligent, consciousness, energy. And some people, who are at a higher level of vibration, they can, even affect the entire world. That's what I've channeled in many sessions. These higher density beings who have come here as wanderers and stuff, they can, like at any moment tap into any kind of higher level energy, and they can shift, the planet into a different vibration. It's more like, who is able to, affect reality. That I feel that is what is happening over here. And as a collective, we all are affecting the future reality that is happening. So yes, I feel it's like that how it is working.
Yeah, it's understandable. Madhava?
What is your advice to people? What is your advice to people about how to sharpen their discernment? I feel like this is often the biggest obstacle we have in being able to interpret what is being transmitted. Is we jump into one way of interpreting it or another, or we dismiss it without really considering the essence of what's being said. So what advice do you have to listeners to help them with their own discernment?
Basically, I use a simple process. I'll explain to you, how I do it. So basically, I have channeled a lot of information about how to stay in a higher vibration. They have given us many information, like choosing to be self-aware, and choosing a positive vibration like love or joy or happiness, whatever you want in the moment. And then there are other exercises like training your consciousness. So in the recent session, they said that Nikola Tesla used a simple method of sensing the outer boundaries of his aura, I believe. So if we are aware of this, like rotating it in a circular manner, we become kind of like we enter a higher level. And then there is also another simple method, which is a fake smile. Even though it may seem fake, but by just doing this, your vibration shifts into a higher level. And yeah, if you are able to live from that state, I have noticed that I practice this many times. I am not able to listen to anything which is of a low vibration, like news and stuff. I mean, it doesn't resonate. So from that, I feel what is happening here is that our state of consciousness is actually choosing what we listen to and what we accept. So I believe firstly you need to change your vibration into higher level if you want to accept a higher level message. That's the thing. Okay, if you're happy with mixed message or low level message, then you can stay in wherever you are, but that way you may get messages with desire. Sometimes people reach out to me with a lot of desire. They want this or they want that, but when they enter a higher level, there is no desire. It's just vanishes, and the message they receive, or the people they meet, and even the environments they go into, it just changes because I believe this resonance is based on vibration. So even scientifically it's proven that as we resonate at a similar frequency, we'll attract the same kind of message. So this is what I have learned from my own understanding. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I would invite all the viewers here to go and listen to Sam's recent channeling about Nikola Tesla and his past incarnations, whether or not you believe that. But what's fascinating about that particular information about Tesla was, as you said, Sam, his movement of awareness around his body, and as a practice. And that is what was said that allowed Tesla to connect with these unbelievable ideas that he implemented. And this is yet another example. And in your other channeling sessions, you've talked about this kind of awareness, like single-pointed awareness, moving it about your body, your physical body, as a way to connect with your essence. And I also know that you used to meditate before channeling. Are you aware that this kind of technique is ancient right? It is basically very similar to Vipassana, which the Buddha taught, in Sarnath when he was here 2,500 years ago. It's very, very similar.
I see. I was not aware of that. Yeah. So when I was when I listened to that, I had no idea. I have heard about Vipassana. It's breathing, right?
It's
In India, they practice.
Well, it is the single-pointed attention of your physical sensations and monitoring your entire body slowly, methodically, and sharpening your ability to feel, as opposed to breathing necessarily. But I found that to be very interesting. What kind of meditation?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I usually practice a bunch of different meditations. Like sometimes I may just press the music, meditation music. I count my heartbeats. As long how much can I count it to? Like just count 1, 2, that beating of the heart. And sometimes I even focus on my fully breathing in and just letting go. As much as I can do. And other simple ones, like focusing on single point, like I can just focus on my finger, like without letting this focus go anywhere, just keeping it here, and if it goes anywhere, bringing it back again and again, so that as much as I do this, it feels good, like it feels like you're connecting with your true spiritual essence.
Yeah, it's reminding me of actually a practice I took a friend through yesterday, which was like, you kind of focus on the center of your palm and just, hold your attention there until you sense energy, whether it's a sort of cooling effect, somewhat of a tickling, maybe it's just a sensation. And usually even people who haven't meditated, they eventually kind of sense that there's something in the center of their palm that they can feel. And then sort of sitting with that for a while. And as the person sort of settles into this body awareness, you ask them to sort of pull back and you say, can you focus that same type of attention, but on your entire body at once? So can you hold the totality of your physical body in your awareness at once? And that is quite a profound experience that, people can play with, like that. Almost, it's going back to that. Can you sense the aura? So that's now, can you sense the space just outside of your body, right? That would be the next level of it. But to get people back in sensing with the body, I think it's very important because, when we're talking about discernment, I just said a classic word between me and Madhava, very important.
Well said.
But being able to sense your body, I mean, is one way of almost discerning. I mean, it absolutely is. I mean, I do believe we need to have our cognition on board, but being able to sense within our physical body if something doesn't quite feel right is really important than just relying on our cognition. I think in synchrony, the cognition and the felt sense of the body are a beautiful, detector of truth to some extent. And again, I always say this with an asterisk because I don't believe that that type of intuition is suddenly going to tell you the absolute truth about any situation, but it will guide you, it will lead you, it will expand your curiosity, it will kind of take you in places. And so with that said, I'm curious, have you ever channeled something, and whether it was, well, maybe not so much when it was happening because you're in a sort of a trance state, but maybe at the end you said, that didn't feel right. Has that ever happened to you?
Right now, as far as I have remembered, not happened. That has not happened yet.
Yeah. So you always felt like you connected with something that was providing like something serving to humanity in a sense.
In each session, like I feel like, I learned something, by listening to it, maybe I learned something about, those kind of exercises, or maybe, some other thing, which is, I don't know, it's amazing for me.
Yeah. And so one other quick question, but just before you jump in, Madhava, is you said early on that sometimes when you're in the trance state and you're channeling, you're connecting with those beings, you can almost feel like you're there with them.
Yeah.
I'm curious about that experience. Like, do you sense their physical body in a visual way? Do you sense the environment in a physical way? Like, can you expand on that?
Yeah. So I'll just give you an example. So while I was, once I was channeling the Galactic Federation, and they said that they are usually in the Saturn rings, and that is the location in our Milky Way galaxy. So they basically, they try to protect our planet. So what I saw was that I just saw, like this group of light, like a collection of light, just imagine the stars, you're seeing stars and together, so they are close together. So I just saw that, and I was connecting with them. Basically, I know from my session is that as you go higher in your vibration or your density of your experience, you don't need bodies. So, we need bodies. So if we enter into fourth or even fifth density, we don't need any bodies. So we can exist as a light being. That's what I have received from my sessions.
Yep. Makes sense.
I'm interested in the because you have not felt like you've ever channeled something negative. What is the ritual you go through to protect you from being connected with self-serving entities?
Yeah, first of all, it's very important. What I do is, always I am trying to be aware of my lower energy centers. Like they have said in one of my sessions when I was starting out, that our lower energy centers, this gut area is an information center which can inform you of your vibrations. So if you're feeling uneasy, or if you're feeling fear, you'll feel fear coming here first. That's what they have said in the session. So if you're feeling any desires, so let's just say you have a desire to get something, you'll feel it here. And by being aware of what I'm feeling, if I'm feeling any lower emotion, like desire is actually pretty low, fear is actually pretty low, and anger, all of those, they emerge from these energy centers, lower energy centers. So I just pay attention to them. And like I said, the fake smile is one of the greatest methods I have discovered for myself as well as for many people. It helps to keep myself in a higher state. Somehow, I don't know, it just works like amazing. And then other thing is, before I enter the session, what I have to do is, I just take a glass of water. I send positive words, love message to the water, for a few minutes, and then I drink it, and then I rub it in my body. And then also they have said to keep it on my on the top of my head in the north direction. So whenever I channel, I am always facing towards the north side, because in one of the sessions they said that I believe there is a magnetic flow with the it aligns with the earth. I think that's what they said in the session. So it doesn't obstruct the energy flow of the body. So yeah, these are the basic simple methods I use.
It's fascinating because what you're describing there is what the same ritual with the sacred water, blessing of the water, and the alignment that Carla Ruckart had to go through to make the connection with Ra more solid. And along those lines, she would always describe of being physically taxed after channeling sessions, physically. Do you find that to be the case too?
Yeah, sometimes I feel tired. I mean, it feels like you had a a session of running or something like that. It feels tiring, especially in the throat area, because the because they have been using it, so it feels sore, kind of thing. Yeah.
So here's a question for you, which is, a lot of the information that you are bringing to the planet, it's being distributed to a large audience. Sam, your audience has grown a lot over the last couple of years. If I'm not mistaken, you have over 100,000 subscribers. Have you ever been threatened by people because of the information that you're bringing to your audience?
Actually, not directly, threatened, but I had got, few emails. I think, I don't know if they were from real person or not, but I just got some threatening from, I believe, they said, they were from the Illuminati, but I don't know, maybe that was a fake email. Yeah. So yeah, that's it. Other than that, no one And yeah, I have got one recent threat. You know what I mean? So I had channeled about. I'm not going to say the name of that. You know, like it was. It was actually I was just asking about the prophet of a religion. I was just asking about his soul identity. So I don't know why people don't like like to talk about their prophet or stuff like that. So yeah, that was another one. Yeah.
Hmm. Well, in the channeling sessions for Ra and the Law of One, there was there were three people. There was the channel, a scribe, and the person asking the questions. Have you ever considered bringing in a second person to watch over you and help you get in the right state and ask a question directly, so that you don't have to keep the question, your query, in your mind?
Yeah, I have tried that, but unfortunately, in one of the sessions, what they have said is that whenever I have, I have an observer or another entity watching me, then it is prone for me to receive that person's thought forms instead of the real message. So they said maybe like my physical body is different, from what Carla, like you said, doing. So maybe it's different, for every single person. So maybe if you channel, there may be a subtle change. So that's what they said. So and also the thing is, like how can I mean, it's very difficult to enter into a trance state, with someone watching you. I mean, for me, like two people watching you, but it's very difficult for me. I don't know. If you're alone, I can like enter into a sleep state. If I'm alone, it's much easier for me. I mean, psychologically, I'm speaking. So yeah.
Well, yeah, there's certain people that make it very easy for me to enter a trance state. Just gonna say
really?
that.
One question on that is, you mentioned your mother at the beginning, having taken you to the hospital and had heard what happened when you were in that trance state the first time. What does she think of what you're up to now and that sort of stuff? Has she changed in her perspective?
Yeah. In the beginning, she was a bit scared because here, the people believe, not only believe, but I have even seen some people getting possessed, like by real entities. So these are different. Like the possessions, they don't leave. They show signs of some kind of power. They also speak in a different voice, which is kind of similar. They speak in a really scary kind of voice. Some of them even have their eyes change color and stuff like that. And yeah, my mother was actually a bit scared in the beginning, but now over the years, I have gotten used to it. So she has also gotten used to it, and of course, I do it. When I am alone most of the time, so that she doesn't have any effect of what I'm doing.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, our audience may not know this, but Sam offers to channel people's higher self. And my question to you is, clearly, this takes time, and I'm shocked at how you're able to devote so much time just to do favors to your audience. How do you manage that? And how many of those do you do a week, let's say?
It depends. Sometimes I do like maybe 5 or 6. In a day, like if I'm free, I can do like 2 sessions maximum in the morning and in the evening. In a week, yeah, sometimes 5. 5 sessions. That's pretty. I mean, pretty big. If you ask me. And also on top of that, I have to edit them myself. I don't have any team. Most people think that I have a team, but I do it on my own. I don't know how I'm able to do it, but thankfully, like I have a lot of motivation to put in the work. And yeah, I think because of that, if you are really interested in doing something, if you really love it, then anything is possible. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, and you have fun doing it, it sounds like.
Yeah. I really enjoyed editing, making this stuff, and sharing it out there, because I feel this may help someone who may need it. Yeah.
Cool. Madhava, you have anything, any other pressing questions you want to ask?
Not pressing, but first I'll say that to our audience, Sam was kind enough to do this for my family, not just for me, but for my wife Jill and my son, and it proved to be extremely, extremely enlightening and important. And so, thank you, Sam. But if you were to, I know we're closing down this discussion, but if there were one or two truths that you've learned from these beings that you were in contact with, what are the one or two biggest ones, would you say?
Yeah, by far, the biggest one is, most people, they don't practice charity. They don't, give to help others. And that's a big one in India. Where I'm from. I never practiced that because no one told us, that it was really important to help, to give, to others, to help them. So that's a big one. I believe if you want to enter a positive timeline, you have to give charity. That's the biggest one. And I feel, when you do that, you'll see a change in your life, and other things, like vibration and all, they just lie second to that. So in even my sessions, they said that charity, if you do it for 1 year, it is equivalent to, you will be invited to the new earth. So just imagine how powerful that is. And I recommend those who want, just do it and help others. That's the most important thing. Yeah.
Well said. Powerful message. I think our planet needs a lot of us coming together, connecting and caring for one another. I often feel that one of the ways in which we're changing, I could say one of the ways in which I really want to see us change, I do believe this is also something that is changing, is that we're kind of extending who we feel we need to take care of from beyond our immediate family structure, but really sensing and feeling into each other, and that we're a planetary consciousness, we're a planetary family in a sense. And I know that sounds sort of cliche to some people, and it sounds like one love hippy dippy stuff. But at the same time, I can't deny this sense I've felt my entire life that it seemed odd to me to only care deeply about just your family. Yes, they should be cared deeply for, and I deeply believe in that, but I've always felt a deep connection to everybody around me, and I would do almost anything for them if they asked. And if I have the time, I usually try and give my help to others. And I think if humanity can continue to look to see if that is a feeling that is within each of us, I think our world could change pretty quickly.
Yeah, just to add, from my own experience, and from the sessions, and I felt that, when you look at when we look at another person in a body, right? So yeah, I am looking at you in a body. We feel that you are different from me, but actually we are one. We are the same.
Mm-hmm.
We came from the same source. And when you're helping the person, you're actually helping the creator of the universe, who is also within that person and within you and within everything. So in essence, you're helping yourself. And I have noticed that if that we are all one. Basically, if you do bad things to someone else, you can try, just say something bad to someone, and then within 6 months, it will come back to you, like from some another person. So that means that we are all connected, right, somehow. And if I do something good to this person, it comes from another person. So it makes me wonder that we are all one actually, and whatever we are doing, we receive because we are all the same. So yeah, that's what I feel.
Beautifully said. Madhava, you got something there?
No, I can't add to that. It's a good way to close. For once,
Yeah.
I'll keep my mouth shut. Yep.
Well, Sam, thanks so much for coming on, giving us your time and having this discussion and answering some tough questions as well. And yeah, truly appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much, both of you, for inviting me and sharing this message to help ourselves, and others as well, who are also ourselves, which is yeah.